This isn't gonna cut it. Let's get this door hinge fixed. So the problem that I have with this door, as you can see, when you go to open the door and you open it up, see how it falls down? It's dropping about 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, and you can pick it up. You shouldn't have to do that. And the problem that we're having is actually in the lower hinge, the bushing inside the pin there is shot or worn out or missing or whatever, I don't know. So what we're gonna do is I've got both hinges. I've got the upper and lower hinges, but I think I might only have to do the lower one. So we're gonna start there. And the first thing we're gonna wanna do is, well, so normally when you do the hinges, you have the fender off and you put the hinge on there and you set the door in and you can bolt the hinges and you're using something underneath to support it and you're worried about the gap here and making sure you keep this gap perfect around everything. Well, the door, when it's closed, it's gapped up good. I mean, this isn't perfect. There's maybe a 1/16 of an inch difference there. That could just be, you know, when the car got repainted, it could just be a little booger there or something. But this lines up pretty good. These are lining up pretty good. This looks pretty good. So the gapping and everything, where the door sits is good. So I don't need to worry about that. So when I do the hinge, I might be able, fingers crossed, to just replace that hinge and bolt it all up and it will stay where it needs to stay, but we're gonna find out. Also, we need to take this panel off. So what I'm gonna do is, there's 3 bolts on the bottom of the hinge that are attached to the door part. I'm gonna open the door and get one of the 3 bolts that I can't get to with the door closed like this. And then when we get this out of the way, I can get to all the rest of the bolts with the door sitting in place. So we're gonna do that first. I'll open this up, get that bolt out of there, and then we'll start taking this off to get to this hinge. Now there's a lot of work to get to the fender. You just can't take a couple bolts off and there's a lot of stuff up at the front of the car that you have to take off to get to this hinge. So also before we get started here, this is what the hinge looks like. They come black. I went ahead and spray painted it. Several coats in here, and this one's easier to move because I don't have that spring in place. But so they actually this bolts this way, the door bolting up to that, and this bolting to the frame just like that. And then same thing with this one. It sits just like this. We're gonna get to this 3rd bolt here first. We'll take that one out with the door. Then we'll close the door, and then we'll be able to get to these bolts and these bolts with the door closed. So the bushings inside here is what's shot on this door. So it may be cheaper to service this, like take it apart and take the bushings out and just put a bushing kit in there. But I think I paid like 30 bucks for this. For 30 bucks, it's all ready to go, slap it in there. That might be worth your effort too. So we'll see how that comes out. So here's the inside of the door, here's the hinge. That's actually the bolt that I was meaning to take out first, but it wasn't in there. You'd want to put that in there. We can do that after the fact. That's not what's causing the problem, but it would be good to have that bolt in there, so I can do that later. These bushings in here, this is what's causing that problem. And actually this whole system here, this sliding mechanism is all worn out. There should be a little bump in here when you kind of open the door and it kind of catches the first spot. You can even see how much it's worn right here. This is supposed to slide on that, and it's just gouging into it and completely cutting it. So there's a lot of things going wrong with this. So let's get this new hinge in here, and we'll go from there. So since this bolt is gone, let's go ahead and just start taking the fender off, and we can go after this hinge. Now that we got that wheel out of the way, we can see that we can get to those hinge bolts back there without having to take the fender. I think we can get away with not needing to take the fender off. I'll have to just kind of prop it up a little bit up here. And I think we can just move it out of the way enough to get to those. We're gonna cross our fingers and hope we can do that. There's lots of other stuff you have to do. You gotta take the bumper off, and the headlight cover, and the grill, I mean the lower valve. You gotta take a bunch of stuff off just to get the fender off. So we're gonna see if we can maybe skip a couple steps. That may bite me in the future, but we'll get in here and see what we can do. Future Andy here. It'll be a lot easier if you could just remove the fender. to do the hinges and stuff. You probably have to open the door, and that causes problems. So be prepared for some patience that you're gonna need to do this. All right, I may have caused more work for myself because I did see that these shims were tucked in behind here, behind this hinge on the chassis, but getting those back in there without having this panel off, might be a problem. So I'm gonna have to mess with that afterwards. But first, let's look at these two hinges. I don't know if this is just because this is an aftermarket hinge. See that bump there and there? Those are for spots when the door opens, it kind of rests in that spot, whereas this doesn't have that. I don't know if it got carved off or rubbed off or what. I don't know enough about that. But you can see it on that. I wonder if you can, yeah, you can, this whole thing here is just pivoting inside. So that's clearly worn out. And then again, this piece is just worn into this bushing here, and it's supposed to slide along here. And this is supposed to spin on this surface as it runs around. So, all right, so now what we can do is, I'm gonna go ahead and I can start bolting this back up to the car. Again, I'm gonna have to come up with a solution to get these back in there, get these shims back in there, because that's what spaces the door out away from the car so that it's right where it needs to be. And then put the bolts in and away we go. I caused a bigger problem because the plate that these fasteners bolt into, when you go through here, there's a plate that they bolt into, and it's inside the frame of the car, and it has dropped down, which means I need to open the door, take the door sill out and the kick panel out to get to that plate. And I didn't want to have to move the door because it was right where I wanted it. Now I gotta have to do that. So, fantastic. All right, I gotta take this piece out, and then I gotta come in here and take this piece of plastic out to get to the plate that's back there. All right, this is the plate that dropped down below. This is what we need to be sitting right here on the shelf. And there is a shelf for it, but when you go to put your screws in from the other side, you can easily just push this off and it'll fall down like it did for mine. So what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to use some clamps or something to kind of hold this in place. Just so I can get the screws in there, and then we can adjust this thing, you know, front to back with respect to the, you know, where the door needs to be. I did notice that this thing had been adjusted towards the back. When I looked in those holes on the front side, these holes were on the back side, so I know that this plate had been moved, you know, towards the rear of the car, so we can start there, and then we'll have to come back and tighten everything up. But yeah, this is what you're gonna want to look out for. All right, we just used a pulley puller to just hold this in place. So what I've got, these little feet attached to the sheet metal of the car, and I'm just pushing this threaded thing against the plate just to hold it in place. I just need to get the bolts threaded on with the hinge, and then I can come back here and I can take this off and we can adjust this plate where it needs to be for the door hinge. All right, that's fixed. Much better. The door doesn't drop now when I open it up, which is the important part. The alignment is not as perfect as I like. It's good here, but the distance between these two, front to, like this kind of direction, it's not perfect, and I think it has to do with shimming of the hinge, that I didn't do a good enough job. But that's something I can go back and fix. At least it's not gonna mess up the door lock mechanism and all that kind of stuff. It just closes now, which is fantastic. Yeah, and then also, yeah, the gap here, again, not as perfect as I'd like. Again, it has to do with the shimming of that hinge, and I just didn't get it right. So, but the door works, that's the important part. So guys, that takes care of that. Like I pointed out earlier, I think you should take the fender off if you're gonna tackle these hinges. I ran into the problem with that backing plate inside the car. I had to open the door to get the, gosh, you know, doing it the right way. Take the fender off, take the liner of the door off so you can reach inside there, because there's a plate inside the door that I got lucky that I didn't push that out of the way for the hinge that goes to the door part. So I think I might have dodged a bullet there, but that might be more work for you guys. So I know I try to put these videos together and show you how to do stuff and do it right, and I didn't do this one right, but it works. So yeah. Probably should do it the right way. So yeah, all right, that takes care of that, guys. I got lots of stuff to do still, so I think I can go back and I can fix that hinge down the road, which would be fine. The shimming of that hinge. But other than that, moving on to the next project. All right, guys, if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.